Winterview, back with another brief dialogue for his dear friend Annastacey, driving to work in my car. Apologies for the sounds of car in the background. Yesterday I talked about the world. Today we're going to talk about burning the world, burning it all down, total destruction, and so on and so forth. That's right, we're going to destroy the world in this brief dialogue. Why not? One of the illusions or delusions of being a person is we take our thoughts to be something real, or we take our thoughts to represent something real. This is a misperception. We do not know if there is something real aside from our thoughts. Why do we not know this? Because the only tool we have for the job of measuring reality is thought itself. So we have a bit of a conundrum, a quandary. We take it on faith. The model works fairly well most of the time. Thought seems to represent something called reality, and we are all fairly happy with it, more or less. But on the other hand, we don't even know what's going on. We've got no idea. We haven't got the foggiest clue what's happening. So, in this brief dialogue, adjusting my microphone, bear with me. Adjusted. In this brief dialogue, we're going to tear the world down and see what happens. See if we fall off the edge. Okay, let's start with the basics, basic concepts about stuff. And I'll just use myself as the sample. N equals 1. A psychology joke for those psychology students listening. Alright, so the mind reports cold. That's because I've got the air conditioner on, says the mind. And there's a nice little narrative, a nice little story about what's happening in the car. In the car, another concept. Do I know, however, how do I know that it's cold? How do I know I'm cold? How do I know there's an air conditioner? How do I know that? Now I'm starting to sound like a belligerent 10-year-old. How do you know? How do you know? Kind of thing. How do I know this? As I work with belligerent 10-year-olds. It's my job to unbelligerentize them, which is impossible. Anyway, got sidetracked there. Getting back to my earlier point, we take it on good faith that the thoughts that appear refer to something real or something objective out there. But the fact remains, I don't know if that's true. I can't get outside of my thought to figure that out. I might ask someone to validate or verify something in thought, but all I have then is the thought of their validation, their verification, which again appears in thought. When it comes to the so-called spiritual search, this whole thing becomes double, triple, quadruple, sticky, complex. Some people will say, there is no self. And the listener to that statement oohs and ahs in amazement. Wow, there's no self. That sounds incredibly profound. However, the statement itself relies on a whole stack of concepts. The concept of self, the concept of presence, as in there is, the verb to be. Negation, a refutation, no, the word no, and so on. If we really break it down linguistically, we can see that it gets a little bit fuzzy around the edges. But spirituality, or the realm of spirituality, is a prime offender of conceptual nonsense, and so on and so forth. And I too am guilty of such conceptualizing foolishness. However, I'm happy with that. But let's go into a few of the spiritual concepts and stuff. Moving right along, we often hear about this thing called consciousness. We sometimes hear about this thing called awakeness, aliveness, that ever-present life that I am, is a phrase that I use quite a lot. Why do I use it? Because it's the best I can come up with. The best phrase I can think of to describe my experience. The experiencing. I don't even know, however, if there is an experiencing. Once again, I'm relying on concepts to even discuss it. I hope that the concepts are in some way accurate, but I don't know, because the whole idea of something being accurate again relies on a form of benchmarking, of referencing to something that might exist outside, external, that I hopefully am approximating. But do I know that? Absolutely not. So a lot of us will have read in the past spiritual type books, or we might be attending spiritual workshops, listening to audio files, CDs, tapes, if you still got them, and all that stuff. And we hear the same types of stuff over and over in this whole non-duality spiritual realm. We hear, obviously, the biggie is there is no self, no personal self. That's a common statement. And we hear other things like everything is consciousness. But that doesn't really tell us much, does it? It's as long as we have a shared understanding of those concepts, it might give us an inkling. And we often hear the dear teacher suggesting that it's a pointer. It's just pointing. But, of course, that brings up the next problem for the mind. What the hell is being pointed to? It makes it seem veiled. It makes it seem hidden, that the words or something is being obscured somehow. And we often hear that concept. There's a veil, and we're trying to lift the veil. Another concept is that the person needs to progress, needs to grow in some type of spiritual way in order to have the truth revealed. So there's another concept, that there's a truth somewhere, and we're not currently getting it. We're not seeing that truth. And one day we will, if we let go of our concepts or refine our spiritual something or other. And people get very serious about this stuff too. They read these books, these heavyweights of spirituality who sit peacefully on a stage, smiling benevolently next to a vase of flowers, with a microphone, looking extremely humble, very full of gratitude to be sitting in front of an audience who've all paid upwards of $80 a ticket, to have that gratitude beamed back at them. Just a little dig there at the old spiritual game. Don't take it too personally. But we have a sense that these people, these figures, or the books that we read, know something. They've figured something out. And it gives the mind the impression that it doesn't know something, that it has to find something. And then we get a process called seeking, the seeker, looking for this thing, this lollipop, this spiritual goal. But it's all conceptual. The whole entire process is conceptual. We don't know if there's a spirituality. We don't know if there's an enlightenment at the end. We absolutely have no idea. And so as we pick apart concept after concept after concept, we shatter them, we go bravely forward, breaking them, tearing the world down, tearing it all down, burning the world in this talk. We don't have a clue what's going on. And the mind does not seem to like that. Doesn't seem to like the fact that it has studied something for 20 or 30 years and it's a nonsense, it's a fiction, it's a conceptual journey of sorts that is totally meaningless, totally unknowable. So there's no... The mind is desperately wanting to cling to the concepts that it's learned over the years. And people become very knowledgeable in this realm. They can rattle off the fundamentals. Everything is consciousness. There is no self. I am that I am. And so on and so forth. But how is that known? Is it even something? The problem that Winterview had was that the truth of the matter was a very deep unknowing, an unknowing so profound that nothing could possibly be said of it, nothing could be conceptualized. It was a total unknowing, a terrifying, in fact, unknowing in some ways. Not totally terrifying, but pretty much as terrifying as it gets. But the flip side of that terror of the unknowing was a liberation or a freedom that was previously undreamt of. There's an incredible spaciousness in that unknowing, a freedom when the world is burned to the ground. The mind often fantasizes about the destruction of the world in real terms, and there are lots of books out at the moment popularizing this idea of apocalypses, of zombies or EMP attacks, World War IIIs, World War IVs, diseases that ravage the world and destroy everyone. And these books are tapping into that, I feel at least, tapping into that wonderful freedom that comes from breaking it all down, breaking the structures of everything we know and cherish. We burn it all to the ground. And some of you who had a misspent youth as delinquents, like Winterview might have, you'll understand that joy in tearing down authority, tearing it all down, breaking down the conventions, the rules, the structures, realizing that it's all arbitrary, it's all made up, it's all a collective agreement that we pretend has some kind of validity. And there's an incredible freedom in that delinquency, and that's why delinquents are delinquents. Feels good. Another funny paradox that we find is that smoking is a statement of freedom and breaking the rules, and we know that that's always been a kind of almost a corny totem in a way of one's freedom and one's rebelling against society. And health advertisers never quite seem to grasp this fact that the stronger they make smoking undesirable or socially unacceptable, the deeper they're entrenching the ability for it to represent a rebellion against everything. And so mark my words, you'll see smoking roar back with a vengeance in popularity in a generation or two, when it becomes the ultimate statement of one's individuality and freedom. And everyone will shake their heads and go, but it's so unhealthy, why are people doing it? Not understanding that deep down there's a longing, an absolute desiring for that raw, untamed, unbound freedom that I somehow sense myself to be. So there is a sense, I guess, that somehow the rules and the structures and the conventions are overlaying a mystery of freedom, and that we can somehow find that. And the idea that if we can break down structures and concepts, etc., we might find that. Well, now for the bad news. Winterview, sad to deliver some sad news. That even that, my friends, is a concept. See, there's no escape, no matter which way we turn. We think we're about to get let in on a little secret by Winterview, and it turns out to be highly conceptual again. And so that's the dilemma for the seeker. No matter how much we try to burn the world down to the ground, no matter how much feeling of freedom comes from that endeavor or that pursuit, no matter how on our way somewhere we feel as we do the burning of the world down, it's all conceptual, all highly conceptualized and put into a neat narrative. There might be feelings of exhilaration and thrill and so forth in the burning of that world, and there might be a rush of sorts and a real sense that I'm on my way. But that's for the person. The person owns all that. So this was a brief attempt to show you how to burn that. Even burning the world down is yet another sideline, so to speak. We can use concepts from spirituality to apparently point to something that apparently we're not seeing, or we can burn all the concepts to the ground in an attempt to get to a truth that's somehow hidden or underneath the concepts. But both are, in fact, conceptual. Both pursuits are highly conceptual. We're stuck again. The seeker is forever stuck, forever getting trapped by the fact that it's all conceptual, it's all time, space, and mind bound. Which always points back to one perhaps grand truth. Perhaps we can't know anything. We don't know anything. It's all I don't know. Maybe, perhaps, when we believe too strongly in our concepts, we enter a kind of illusion or a dream world where we really feel that this is it, this is reality. And conversely, when we feel like we're breaking out of that reality by shattering the dreams and so forth, that's still the same process. It's still the illusion, or the delusion, if you like, of breaking it all down happening. There's an oscillation, you might notice. Structure, chaos, structure, chaos. What to do? What to do? The problem is, dear listener, there's nothing to do. No one there to do it. It's just happening, apparently. It's all just happening. Like a roller coaster. An infinite roller coaster. It's all unfolding mysteriously, eternally, for no one. This has been Winterview, with a very brief dialogue for his dear friend Annastacey on burning the world down. Comments are welcome.